In this lesson, we are going to multiply fractions or mixed numbers. As you start your notes, be sure that you pause the video and take the time to write down the 4 steps that you see on the screen in front of you. We are going to start each problem by converting any mixed numbers to improper fractions. We are then going to simplify the problem by finding numerators and denominators with common factors. That's going to feel like we're simplifying fractions themselves. It's like taking 2/4 and simplifying it to 1/2. We're then going to multiply our numerators and then multiply our denominators. And finally, we're going to check to see that our answer is in simplest form. In our first example, we're being asked to multiply 1/2 times 1/3. And our magic word here in math is of. So this is really saying, what is 1/2 of 1/3? So if I have a 1/3 of a pizza left over from dinner, and I bring that in for lunch, so there's my 1/3 right here, and I cut that in half and share it with a friend. I give my friend 1/2 of my 1/3. The question is asking me, what fraction of the entire pizza am I giving to my friend? So in terms of calculations, we're going to first convert any mixed numbers to improper fractions. Well, we don't have that in this problem. We're then going to look to see if we have numerators and denominators with common factors other than 1, and we don't have that in this case. We have 1s on the numerators, and so we really can't simplify either of these fractions. We're then going to multiply numerator times the numerator, so 1 times 1 is 1, and then denominator times denominator, 2 times 3 is 6. We'll check to see that 1/6 is in simplest form, and it is. So multiplying fractions is that easy. In example number 2, we have a whole number. Now when we talk about whole numbers, we're talking about items that are still in one piece. So that 2 represents basically 2 whole pizzas that have not been cut into slices yet. So to represent 2 whole uncut pizzas, we can use a denominator of 1. That's telling us that each of our pizzas is still in one piece. So now we can look at simplifying our fractions. Now in this case, while we have 2 over 1, and that really can't be simplified, there's no common factor other than 1, and 3 over 4 is in simplest form, because we're multiplying, we can actually think about this in different ways. We can look at this as 2 times 3 over 1 times 4. And because multiplication is commutative, that means 2 times 3 is the same as 3 times 2. We can actually rewrite that. Oh, that's a 2. That's the same work. You're going to get the same result. We've just reversed the factors. So now if you look at this in a different way, you can see that we can think about this as 3 over 1 and 2 over 4. Well, 3 over 1 is already in simplest form, but 2 over 4 actually simplifies. We have a common factor of 2, so we can simplify that to 1 and this to 2, because 2 divided by 2 is 1 and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So now we have the problem of 3 times 1 over 1 times 2. And when I multiply that, I have 3 over 2, which is an improper fraction, so I need to change it over to a mixed number, and that is the same as 1 and 1/2. So a lot of little steps to think about occur in are in this problem for us, but they're all steps that we know how to handle. So let's take a look at example 3, 2/7 times 3/8. So I can write that as 2 times 3 over 7 times 8. And because I see a common factor of 2 in the 2 and the 8, I'm going to think about this as 3 times 2 and 7 times 8. And if it helps, highlight those 2 new fractions that you're seeing so you can think about them individually. 3/7 is in simplest form, but 2/8 has a 2 and 8 have a common factor of 2. So we can simplify that. And so now we're looking at 3 times 1 over 7 times 4. 3 times 1 is 3, and 7 times 4 is 28, and that fraction is in simplest form. All right, let's take a look at situations that involve mixed numbers. So we're being asked to find 1/2 times 4 2/5. So that's asking us to think about what is 1/2 of 4 2/5. So if you think about it in terms of, you should be thinking about, okay, am I going to wind up with more than 4 2/5 or less than? Well, since we're taking a fraction of it, we're only taking half, we should wind up with a product that's less than 4 2/5. So step 1, let's convert any mixed numbers to improper fractions. And we have that 4 2/5 to think about. Now think about pizzas. I like to think about food when I'm thinking about fractions because it helps me visualize what's going on here. So this is like saying I have 4 uncut pizzas and 2 slices of another one, and all the pizzas eventually have to be cut into fifths. So if I have 5 slices in each pizza, so I have 5 slices per pizza, and I multiply that by 4 because I have 4 pizzas sitting there, I'm going to get 20 slices of pizza out of those 4 whole pizzas. But I also have those 2 extra slices that you see in the fraction. So those are more slices for us to think about. So all together, and I should rewrite that because 5 times 4 is 20. And 20 plus the 2 is 22 slices. That makes a little more sense. We have true statements then. So that means altogether I have 22 slices of pizza to think about. And all of those slices are in fifths. So 4 2/5 is the same as 22 fifths. 5 times 4 is 20 plus the extra 2. All right, so let's proceed now with the multiplication puzzle. We have 1/2 now times 22 fifths. So I can rewrite that as a single fraction. I can use the commutative property to reverse my factors so that I can see fractions that can actually be simplified. And I know that 22 and 2 have a common factor of 2. So I have 11 over 1 basically times 1 over 5. And 11 times 1 is 11. 1 times 5 is 5. So that's an improper fraction. I need to convert it to a mixed number. 11 divided by 5 gives me 2 groups of 5. I have 1 slice left over, and that slice is still in fifths. So if you go through your puzzles and think about fractions like pizza or cake, I think you'll find this a little easier to manage. All right, a couple more examples before we wind up our lesson. We're going to take 2/3 times 3 3/10. So let's start by making 3 3/10 an improper fraction. So 10 times 3 is 30, and 30 plus that extra 3 is 33. So I have 2/3 times 33/10. And now, once you understand that idea that we can use the commutative property to change our factors around, you really don't have to write that next step that you saw me doing if you don't need to. You can go ahead and say, well, I see 3 and 33 have common factors of 3. So 3 divided by 1, or divided by 3 is 1, and 33 divided by 3 is 11. And I see that I have common factors of 2 for 2 and 10. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So now when I rewrite my problem, I have 1 times 11 over 1 times 5. And that gives me 11 fifths again. So I am going to be left with 2 and 1/5. All right, and my last puzzle for this lesson involves 3/7 times 3 1/9. I'm going to convert that 3 1/9 to an improper fraction. 3 times 9 is 27, and 27 plus 1 is 28. So my puzzle rewritten is 3/7 times 28/9. I see a common factor of 3 between the 3 and the 9. 3 divided by 3 is 1. and 9 divided by 3 is 3. I have a common factor of 7 for 7 and 28. 7 divided by 7 is 1, and 28 divided by 7 is 4. So I have 1 times 4 over 1 times 3. And that leaves me 4 thirds. And when I simplify that to a mixed number, I have 1 and 1/3.